This is the 25th episode, and we don't have a theme song, so I'm singing this silly tune. Oh yeah! Good afternoon, or possibly evening, or other time of the day to you, dear listener, and welcome to the first 2025 episode of the Minsk and Friends Speakeasy. Here we have your hosts. My name is Minsk.
And I am Friends.
And we're ready to entertain you for an hour with yammering about video games once again. So, Jonathan, how has the 2025 been looking?
Busy, very much so.
Yeah, no kidding. I know it was. We were just talking before recording. Like, kind of had to slip this recording in, or we would be like a month late or something. I imagine, knowing our luck. So, but good that you could drop in to do another episode.
Yeah, no worries. Always fun. I'm glad that I'm staying in one place long enough to do this.
Oh yeah, you have had a little bit of that action on the side as well, but I think everything's sorted on your end now pretty well again, yeah?
Slightly, yes.
Ah, good stuff. So, today we have lined up I don't know, the big release in the RPG field in the spring. I don't know. There's been lots of big releases, but in the RPGs, I'm not sure. We'll have to talk about it. But I thought before we jump into the game review, it would be delightful for myself and Jonathan to really quickly revisit a couple of fun opportunities we have had this spring where we got to go see a bunch of old video game movies. So I thought we'd have a quick review session here. So yeah, we had a nice chance because a local theater ran a theme event with a bunch of video game movies, and we had to basically attend. Now, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean it was basically mandatory.
for our field, yeah. So I mean, we didn't see every single. It was a all along the spring theme. So a couple of movies that we missed, or at least myself, I missed, was Battleship was an interesting choice. I keep saying Liam Neeson movie, but you said he's only in it for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it would be a stretch to call it a Liam Neeson film.
Okay, well, I've only seen the trailer, where he's being all stodgy and stuff, but they played war games because of the tic-tac-toe connection, so there was a little bit of more than just video games, and there was, other kind of game-themed ones going on, but we got to see 3 movies altogether across various days of the spring, and which ones were those?
Do you want me to reveal them?
Yes, please do.
We got to see, we started off with a classic, Mortal Kombat.
Yes, that's very fitting after talking about the new one last year. In last year's episode, we got to watch the classic 95 version.
And after that, a couple of weeks later, we got to go see Street Fighter.
And once again, the classic from the early 90s with Raul Julia's seminal final performance.
And then slightly less interesting, we closed the whole thing off with the 2005 Doom. With also, as a preamble to Doom, we saw a Soviet film from 100 years ago celebrating its 100th anniversary called Chess Fever.
Oh, I'm glad you remembered that too. Yeah, that was fascinating and, again, on point and suitably cerebral to watch just before Doom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's just do a really quick thoughts here. Let's start with Mortal Kombat, which was delightful to revisit. It's been a while since I watched it. It holds up really nicely, honestly, for a 90s movie. Like, we were commenting how cool all the set design and costuming and everything is. It's actually a really nice movie to look at.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by this because my memory of it was that it's not that it looks cheap, but I think I'm thinking of the second part.
Which by the way they also did air at this theater, but we decided enough is enough, so that one wasn't on the.
Yeah, we had the 2 movies that we were both like, we're not going for those, which were Howard the Duck and the second Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah, okay, man's gotta know his limits.
But yeah, I was really happy how it looked, and I was kind of happy with the fact that like it kind of moves along really nicely, that I didn't get bored with it at any point. I think my biggest issue with it was that nobody in that movie knows how to fight, which is kind of terrible for a movie that's all about fighting.
Fair point you could levy at it, I suppose. I mean, that's what I kind of noticed for the first time. Obviously, Robin Shou, I think, he's really good, so they at least cast the right guy to be Liu Kang in terms of combat style.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this right after, is that it's kind of a shame that Robin Shou is not a bigger star than he is, because he's a really solid and charismatic performer, and you'd think that in like the genre space that he would have had a bigger of a career.
I really wish he did, because he just kind of petered out. He was one of the incidental voices in Sleeping Dogs, which I guess is bit of a downward trajectory, because again, a man with his talents ending up doing that, it's too bad. But yeah, I noticed, like, for the first time, I noticed that, like, Sonya has very few fights, and it's very clearly because Sonya's actor was not very good at combat. So it's like, I think that's also a levy in general. You could say that Sonya kind of a damsel in that movie, unfortunately. But in this case, it seems to have also been driven by the fact that not a very good martial arts fighter, Sonya's actor.
Yeah, the fight scene with her and Kano is kind of painful to watch.
Yeah, and also because Kano's like he turned out to be like the favorite, of course. So it's like sucks that he leaves the movie that early, unfortunately. But also who was also a favorite, we can't ignore the Lambert.
The Lambert of it all, yes. Oh my goodness, that man is just a national treasure of bad acting.
Yeah, but it was so delightful that basically he only had to appear on the screen and the audience was laughing. Like his opening when he walks in and like he like looks up to reveal his face from underneath that straw hat, and like the crowd was just chuckling at the fact that here's Christopher Lambert trying to look like this kung fu master.
Yep.
No, but I would say he elevates the movie in some weird way.
Absolutely, and also the really, really bizarre, like way that he's trying to have a catchphrase multiple times.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's really odd.
Didn't really catch on, I don't think, but sure.
Yeah, but yeah, it's something.
Yeah, I'd say it's a nice piece of 90s movie history, so I recommend Mortal Kombat heartily. Now, how does it compare to the other fighting game movie that we watched a couple of weeks later, Street Fighter?
Well, now here is a really interesting thing, because, like, the Street Fighter is arguably, I don't know if I'd say a better directed movie, but it's tonally at least a little bit more coherent, I think, because you can actually tell that they're trying to make jokes, and some of the jokes actually do land.
Yeah.
Whereas in Mortal Kombat, the jokes really are funny because they're so bad.
And they're being said by Christopher Lambert.
Exactly. So Street Fighter, at least in that sense, gets a little bit of a win from me because, like, like Raul Julia elevates the whole thing so much. Like he gets the good kind of laughs, whereas Lambert gets the bad kind of laughs.
Yeah, and I should make clear to people, because there was a joke back in the day that the movie is so terrible that it killed Raul Julia. But just so no one misunderstands this, like Raul Julia knew that he was dying, like he had been diagnosed for a while. So like he put his heart and soul into making this movie, so it absolutely is like, that's a man like giving it all he's still got left in the tank. So like I don't really appreciate joking in that sense about the movie's quality. He is still like punching really high in that movie, and he's giving it his all.
Yeah, and he seems to be having a lot of fun in it. I don't think, because I think he said right before his death in like an interview that he doesn't understand a goddamn thing about what's going on in it. But at the same time, he seemed to be still having so much fun with it.
Yeah, I believe the same case is with Van Damme. I do believe, hasn't he said that he was like coked off his marbles while making that movie.
Yes, I have an old Empire magazine which has like a Street Fighter special for, I think at the time it was the 15th anniversary. And in that they talk about, Van Damme just says that he doesn't have like any memories of it. Like he remembers swimming, having a lot of fun with Kylie Minogue, and and then just being coked off of his mind.
Yeah, but I'll say he also gives not the highlight of his career, but a noteworthy chapter in his career. Like he tries to balance that stoic military general, and then he just overacts the shit at the end. So it's a delightful movie.
It is certainly something.
I really struggle to say like which one I think out of these two, which you just kind of want to compare because the games themselves they're based on are so comparable, and I'm just like, which one do I actually think is better? Because I think Mortal Kombat feels more competently made, and I think it's more authentic to the subject matter, whereas with Street Fighter they really didn't seem to have faith with the like original stuff, by some crazy like rewritings of the like characters. Bison they get right, but Ryu and Ken being like weird gun hustler guys, and Blanca being like a weird science experiment, and Dalsim being like a scientist. Like there's all sorts of weird wacky choices, but there's just this earnestness that just shines through in Street Fighter that is really hard to for me to like ignore.
Yeah, I would say that on like the watchability thing, Mortal Kombat does win out for me simply because, and that was quite clear when we were seeing it with an audience, is that the moment the movie starts, it kicks off strong with the Mortal Kombat theme music and
techno syndrome.
Yeah, and it just keeps going and it never like really slows down properly. So I think that in that sense, Mortal Kombat does edge out the win. I wouldn't call either of these really like truly good movies, but they're entertaining movies, and I had a fun seeing them in the cinema at least. Yeah,
this is where I don't know how this is where I think I quantify good in a different way, because I don't know, because again, definitely there's certainly something but I had a hell of a good time with both of these movies. And I have to say that really warmed my heart when the ending came up and everyone did their win pose in Street Fighter, and the big title came again, and the entire audience clapped for that. That just really made me so happy that all these years later, there's an audience of people just appreciating that movie's craft like that. Delightful.
Oh yeah, I think everybody knew exactly what they were coming in for, and that's always fun because you're with like-minded people.
Yeah, absolute delight. Well, then there's this short chess movie. It was silly. It was a funny, weird slapstick, and also kind of a time capsule of what life was 100 years ago in the Soviet Union. I don't know, not much to say. I had a good time.
Yeah, I think mostly I was surprised at how physical the comedy was, because there was a lot of really Simpsons style jokes in it, like the guy walking past. It's about a guy who has a almost a sickness in how addicted he is to chess.
Yeah, and he's ruining his relationship with his wife because he's so focused on chess.
Yeah, and he's trying to get to his wife's place and walks past a shop that says that hey, are you a chess master? You must come in here. And he's like, no, I must get to my wife. And he starts walking, and then he realized that gravity itself turns against him and pulls him right back into the chess shop. And it's such a ridiculous kind of Simpsons gag with him trying to hold on to the trees and still being moving backwards and flying towards the store right onto a chessboard.
Yeah, that was a highlight, especially the way he just slumps down in the chair once he's fully given up. Yeah,
and lots of cat abuse, which was really surprising.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. It wasn't the worst treatment in the world, but yeah, there was a lot of cats in weird places in that one scene. It was, okay.
Yeah, he's finding cats in his clothing and in his shoes, and he just picks them up and shows them to the camera, where did this kitten come from? And then just throws it off camera.
That was a bit of manhandling. Yeah, that was a little unnecessary.
Yep, but it was cute. It was very interesting, and I'm glad that they picked something so wildly esoteric for a game adaptation movie. It's really stretching the boundaries here.
Yeah. I mean, again, it was just anything that has something to do with games. I think personally, I felt like Howard the Duck was the worst fit, just because that was based on a comic and it had a tie-in game rather than the movie being based on a game. So I think that was thematically least appropriate.
I agree. Yeah, I really think they could have had because we saw Street Fighter and Doom like on the same day, and we had like a break in between because that's when they showed Howard the Duck, and we were not going to go watch that.
Yeah.
But then the if they had shown Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and then Doom back to back, I think that would have been perfect.
Would have made a lot of sense. Well, I don't know about the Doom one, except, it being another time capsule of movie making from a different time, but at least the Street Fighter Mortal Kombat would have been the obvious pair-up of dueling movies. But so
yeah, I do think so. That would be great. But it was fun. I'm glad, and now we'll just look forward to the next kind of thematic movie marathon.
Yeah. But before we move on, we do at least gotta give Doom a word or two, even if it was definitely, I would say, the least interesting of these three movies.
I think so, yeah. And I think it's also telling that the audience did not clap, and the audience was really, like, most of the time, like, I don't know if you looked at the audience while we were in there, because we were sitting in the back row, so we saw the whole theater the whole time. Like, people were just visibly bored by that movie.
Yeah, it's just it's trying to be Event Horizon, but like it doesn't have any of the like suspense really. It's just also trying to just being an action movie, but it's doing that thing that the contemporary movies from that time, Alien versus Predator, did, where everything's super dark and jittery. So like the action scenes are a little annoying. I don't know. Like I also, we were talking about how Karl Urban has yet to upgrade to being a very emotive actor, so he's still kind of wooden in this.
Yeah, and I think the only interesting part about that was the fact that you had such a stacked cast of like character actors in it, and that it was still the time where Dwayne Johnson was allowing himself to be like the villain of stuff, which is much more interesting
thing. He's not the hero in it, and he doesn't have whatever. Like I keep hearing about this clause he has where he like can't look bad, like getting his ass kicked in movies. So and it also comes as a bit of a twist because like it's only like the back half where he suddenly like becomes the villain, and that's kind of fascinating, and that's an interesting look, and very different from nowadays.
Yeah, and I think it's also one of those things where, like, I don't think the director really cared about the material that they were doing. Like, this could have been called anything else, and I don't think we would have realized that it was a Doom movie originally. Like, if they had called it just, Tough Guys Go to Mars, and it would have just been like that. And I don't think people would have really, given a shit that, this is not a video game adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, the original script, it was not going to be on Mars, so that, I think, already gives the game away that it was probably something a lot more generic sci-fi-y. Although I appreciate that the couple of monsters they did, like, really well, like, model to look like the monsters from Doom 3, which was the Doom at the time. So at least they got on point that the couple of times you saw a monster clearly, it was, like, taken from the game. So that was pretty nice.
Yeah, and I think as a curiosity that the director of Doom, Andrzej Bartowiak, went on to direct Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li a couple of years later. So he maintained that same high quality all the way with his video game adaptations.
Apparently so. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, that was not available, but I think we would have also skipped that one if Legend of Chun-Li was airing.
I think so, yeah, because it's one of those weird things that, like, both Street Fighter, the movie, and then this Doom were directed by people who were not originally directors. Like, Bartowiak was he is still a Polish cinematographer. Okay. And he did the cinematography for, like, a lot of James L. Brooks and Sidney Lumet movies, so, like, really high class, he has won, awards for his cinematography. He's really genuinely good with this, and he's worked with a lot of great filmmakers. And then he worked with, like, William Friedkin in Jade, and he did the cinematography for Dante's Peak with Roger Donaldson, and I think that's where he started to get the idea that like he would want to direct action, because then he started doing a lot of action movies like U.S. Marshals, Lethal Weapon 4, 13 Days, and like those were the last things that he actually was a cinematographer on. And then he went into, he went to direct Romeo Must Die and like a couple of Steven Seagal movies like Exit Wounds and Cradle to the Grave.
So what bad thing is I've seen all three movies that you just listed.
Yeah, I think Romeo Must Die is kind of a cute time capsule as well. It's not a very good movie, but yeah. So I think that the whole... and like again, the Street Fighter was directed by Steven D'Souza, who then famously wrote Die Hard and wrote a like a lot of John McTiernan movies.
Yeah, so he's got a pretty good pedigree as well in some of these like outside of directing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and like when I spoke with McTiernan some time ago, like he had nothing but praise for D'Souza as a writer, and I know like Rennie Harlan thought that D'Souza is a great writer because hang on, I've got a list here somewhere. So D'Souza's writing catalog in like a 10-year span, he did 48 Hours, Commando, The Running Man, Die Hard 2, Beverly Hills Cop 3, and then Street Fighter. So, like, stuff that we kind of grew up on.
Yeah, some big names here, definitely.
Yeah.
In action movies.
Yeah, and he also wrote the Judge Dredd adaptation for Sylvester Stallone, so there's that too.
Yeah, and I'm also looking Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life, another, video game movie connection here. I would say the less good of the two Lara Croft movies, the Angelina Jolie Croft movies, and that is saying something.
Yeah, I haven't seen them in like 20 years, so I don't remember anything about them. I just remember when I saw them that I was not a fan the first time, so I just haven't had an instinct to go revisit them.
The first one's simply interesting because Daniel Craig appears in it, a young Daniel Craig before Bond. Is
right.
Just the curiosity of seeing him in something, So, but yeah, I wouldn't say those are either. although if the first Lara Croft had been at this video game movie event, I would have kind of thought, kind of curiosity, would have wanted to see it.
I probably would have gone and see it as a curiosity as well. But yeah, I don't think I'll go in. Maybe for the next one, if there's another game adaptation thing.
Oh yeah, let's hope Lara Croft makes it there. But yeah, that's been our spring now. It's been a delightful one, so this has been fun, revisiting all these silly movies. I appreciate that years later you can just go watch these turkeys and have a good time, just being like, yeah, you know what, this was pretty fun, this silliness.
Oh yeah, and the art house theater that we went to, we should give a shout out to VHS Teatteri Union in Helsinki. It is just a lovely little theater, and they specialize in this. They don't show almost any new movies. I don't think they show any of them at all, but it's like just differently themed old movie series. Like right now they're doing an anime series about cyberpunk anime.
Oh yeah, we're both looking forward to Appleseed, the 89 adaptation.
That's true, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, very cool stuff. If you're in Helsinki, I would recommend catching a viewing in this lovely old theater. But yeah, let's get on with the real topic today. Let's get on with reviewing the game we've been playing this spring. And the game we'll be talking about today is Avowed by Obsidian Entertainment, the long and storied RPG makers who have... I don't know what they actually have fairly big names, but I guess New Vegas is kind of their big feather in the cap because, like, they quote unquote, saved Fallout, after Fallout 3 was a little bit mixed. So they made New Vegas, and more recently they made Outer Worlds, which was supposed to be kind of like a spiritual successor to those Fallout, Bethesda Fallout games, and now they've made Avowed, which was hyped up as a spiritual successor to Elder Scrolls games, I don't think that's entirely true, having played it for a while now, outside of course, the first-person fantasy adventure vibes.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, like, because it's not entirely open world, and it's not simulation-y in quite the same way that the Elder Scrolls games are. But I think it's just that Obsidian's history and the games they've been made, it kind of drummed up this artificial hype a little bit, to like be like the alternative to Elder Scrolls, especially because with Bethesda's current speed at making games, we can look forward to Elder Scrolls 6 sometime in the 30s, I think. But regardless, though, I would like to say that Avowed is a really freaking cool game. I have had a really good time adventuring in this interesting fantasy world.
Yeah, I'm gonna right out say in relation to this world thing and to the way the game is designed that I genuinely 100% prefer this way that they've approached the world and making it over the massive open world that is like Skyrim.
There is some it's the kind of same way as like people who like linear games also appreciate how it's like a little bit focused. This one's not focused, but like there's a really good density of stuff in the world owing to the fact that you explore like separate quadrant areas that are open in themselves, but not like one giant open thing, if that makes sense. Like there's four mini open worlds that you go through in this world.
Yeah, and like I think manageable is what I used in my review in terms of like what it is, in the sense that like it never feels overwhelming. Like every area you get to, you kind of have a really clear indication of like you can either follow the story and move really quickly through it, or then you can start going and doing like all these missions, but they all feel kind of handcrafted. They don't feel like that they've just kind of copy pasted the same mission all over and over again into multiple locations. So I ended up doing this, like completing this at 100%, like doing every single thing that I could find, because the way that it unfolded, it fed into my kind of dopamine kick. That I was just going around and going like, oh, I've done this and I've done this entire area. This is a great place for me to take a pause and then like come back a couple of days later and start a new area and do the same kind of, wandering around and finding new ways to approach the adventure.
I should put a disclaimer at this point for my own review that I haven't beaten. Once again, I have not beaten this entire game. I have cleared the 2 of 4 areas I've played through, so I feel like I have a robust enough take to like, offer a review here. But, disclaimer, like I can't comment on the rest of the latter half of the game, so this is a slightly impression-y review. But yeah, I on the other hand, I did my usual thing where I just kind of stumbled to the nearest quest and just kind of curiosity of, okay, well, where does the wind take me? And I found that I was going at a nice clip between all the missions that I was picking up because, again, it does have a little bit of compactness. So it would definitely, not overwhelming is the term I would use for this game. And it's a very lovely game as you explore all the beautiful environs. So it's very pleasant to explore this living lands. Now, let's quickly talk about the premise and the story here to begin with. So, one of the things that I didn't know getting in because I had been maybe sold a little bit too much on the Elder Scrolls successor thing is that this is actually a sequel to Pillars of Eternity, which was Obsidian's big throwback to isometric RPGs a few years back, at a time when isometric RPGs hadn't become the big, comeback vogue thing they are right now. So Pillars was a big, name, and this is basically Pillars 3. They decided to make it a first-person action RPG instead of a turn-based isometric RPG. So that surprised me a little bit. Have you played the Pillars games?
I have played the second one.
Okay. Well, I have not touched either of them, so I'm gonna have to admit that at first I was glossing over a little bit because I've played a lot of fantasy games and read a lot of fantasy stories, so I've been inundated in a lot of different fantasy settings. So the opening preamble kind of explaining how this world works and what's going on, I was just a little bit like, okay, so it's high fantasy. There's these and these these and these ancestries are like the main. There's humans and whatever, and it's just this is the kind of how the cosmology works. At first, I was like a little bit checked out, I have to admit. I don't know how much you loved Pillars 2. Did you feel a little bit like that?
Well, I enjoyed Pillars 2, but I think I'll have to give a disclaimer that, like, while I did play it, I never finished it because it was such a massitive game.
Yeah.
And because I think at the time I was just getting into starting to do, like, reviews a lot more full time, and I think it just got lost in all the other stuff. I remember enjoying the world a lot, but I think that in terms of the way Avowed goes with the storytelling, I prefer that. It's not as there's a lot more limits to how much you actually have to take in exposition at once, which I prefer. Like, if you want to go and read then the journals and the histories in the game, you can. But like, I preferred a little bit more direct approach in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, and I have to say that I did get into it quite a bit then once, the little opening explained what's going on. Like, okay, then once you're in the thick of it, and you start understanding how this world works, and it's like a really compelling setting. You are part of a larger empire, but you are sent to this distant. Well, I mean, to the Empire, it's a distant colony, but when you hang out there talking to the people of this place called the Living Lands, it's very clear that it's an already settled place, and these people had a life going on, and there's interesting culture clashes that you have to learn about, and just the life in this place. I think first person really worked really nicely in putting yourself in this world and kind of soaking in this really fascinating, frontier land that you're hanging out in. So, I didn't mind. I really enjoyed the setting once, I put a few hours into it. I completely think it's a very cool and compelling fantasy world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so yeah, the plot. Well, another very simple, Another, I would say, rather classic plot is there's the big old plague going around, and you have to kind of solve it. You're trying to find out what this magical plague is. So you're sent to this country where it seems to be originating from. Also, your character sorta, kinda, maybe is a chosen one because they're half god. Well, in this world, people can just have the blood of gods in them. Your character is one, which means that really gross mushrooms grow on your character's face. They do allow you to turn off the mushrooms, but visually, people are still going to comment on your fungal countenance. It's part of the plot that you have shrooms on your face, which also there's shrooms everywhere. That's an interesting design choice. It's just a world covered in mushrooms, which makes it kind of magical even further, I feel like. So interesting. You really quickly pick up a party member, and you end up collecting a couple during this adventure. It gives that RPG feel because you have your fleshed out party members, and I really like them. I think they're interesting, multifaceted characters.
I like them too. I especially like Garrus a lot.
Right, immediately going on with that. So, yeah, the first guy you pick up is Kai, the Sharkman pirate swashbuckler guy kind of dude, and he is voiced by Garrus from Mass Effect. Oh god, I forget his voice actor's name. Let me quickly. Kai, voice actor, Avowed. Whoa. Gotta give the guy his credits here. Is voiced by Brandon Keener, right? Who I kind of missed what he did after Mass Effect, so bit of a okay, cool, it's him back here.
Yeah, for me, I think the thing was because he's got such a very distinguished kind of cadence, and he's got a very unique voice. And I think he leans into it quite a bit. So I'm not saying it as a bad thing. I thought Kai was a really great character, but there were a lot of times where I was just going like, "Oh yeah, that's Garrus. That's a fish version of Garrus."
Yeah, basically, they kind of have a similar also vibe to the life. I think Garrus is a little bit younger and a little bit kind of more like motivated. I think Kai comes off as a little bit more world weary. Like he's almost between Garrus and Rex a little bit. Was the read I got.
Yeah, and he's, if you listen to his stories and the further you go in the story, like when you get to the couple next areas, there's a lot in that I think really flesh him out even further, and he becomes an extremely interesting character that I really wanted to, and I think this was like tangentially going to the bigger topic, is that all the characters were so well written that I genuinely wanted them not just to like me, but I really genuinely wanted them to be happy in the story, which is something that shouldn't be taken for granted in an RPG like this. That's
a connection on a way deeper level than like just like, oh, that's a cool character. So kind of cool that you got that vibe there. I definitely felt the same for the second character you pick up, Marius, the dwarf. He's such an interesting dichotomy because he is he's a loner, he's aloof, he's running from his past, but he's also he's wisecracking and he's quite amiable to working with you, and he's trying to be helpful. So I was delighted by what a multifaceted guy Marius, the dwarven ranger, was.
Yeah, I liked him a lot too. He's a slow burn character. I think it took me until the third area to really start like warming up to. I was actually like in the beginning very kind of hesitant because he does pull a lot of stuff where he's just kind of like, I don't want to be with you people, while edging toward you constantly and trying to be part of the conversation.
He's butting in camp talks every once in a while. And it's like, also, he's super defensive sometimes. He's like, no, what do you think I was talking about? And I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the quests are really snappy. Yeah, there's like, I would say there's not a huge density of quests, and they really aren't like collecting 20 bear skins type of missions. So, some of them are pretty simple, straightforward ones. Like, you'll be done with them in like 10 minutes, and then sometimes it's like there's an entire dungeon you explore with some choices along the way. So good variety and some cool writing that really like opens up the setting a lot.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things about this is, and I'm gonna ask you first, did you complete the second area entirely already, or are you still doing the second area?
I am still doing the second area, actually. Yeah, I did say I completed it, but I did not 100%, and I'm a little bit, I'm close to the ending there, but I've explored most of it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try and then phrase this in a way that doesn't spoil anything for you, but like, one thing that I really appreciated about the mission structure is that because the way the world is built and because they are like each area has its own dynamics, I found like in my review process that like I accidentally like at one point bumped into a story beat that you're not supposed to bump into that early, but the game then just continued onwards from it and like changed the trajectory of how the plot plays out just because I was a curious little goblin who was just going through every single place, and I just accidentally found an entrance to a place that I wasn't supposed to.
That's always delightful when like developers kind of like have the foresight to plan for like what if have the foresight to plan for sequence breaking and basically like making it work sensibly. Yeah, that's always a really good feeling when you realize that's what's happening.
Yeah, and I think it gives it that energy that I really enjoy in like the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom games, in that there's a sense of adventure, that it doesn't feel too pre-planned, that you actually like, if you decide that I want to go and I want to, make these stories for myself, even though it is an illusion, you're still kind of like chained to a linear story that the game tells.
Yeah.
I think that because I've now played it, I think 3 or 4 times for different like playthroughs and articles that I've done. And each time I've gotten a distinct journey, even though it ends in the same place. Like they don't feel like different, or they all feel like different gameplay experiences, which is really hard to do, even if you're doing like an open world thing. And I haven't seen it done well in quite a long while.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I'm on my one playthrough still, so can't comment on this too much. But I appreciate the craftsmanship on the, I think that's always what Obsidian has been appreciated for, is the writing. It's usually the technical sides where the faults come up in their games, is the general vibe. But so story altogether really pleasing in this game. Let's talk about the gameplay a little bit. So this one, obviously, I would say is where the differences from Elder Scrolls immediately come apparent, because I think it's a much more involved combat system. That is, I think it's one of the best I've seen in like a first-person RPG system. Like, it's a really good balance of being like having the RPG mechanics without like feeling super limiting, while also not making the kind of first-person free-moving things kind of break the game too much. So it's I find like the combat is quite good, especially, again, also the variety again. Like, you can do Dark Souls style, like, sword and shield kind of gameplay, but there's also some really cool spellcaster options. My favorite playthrough was pistol in one hand, spellbook in the other, which was some real crazy pulpy gunslinger mage action. And it works really well in my mind.
Yeah, I really do. I really enjoyed the fact that, like, they put an emphasis on how that it doesn't feel the same if you play it differently. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to express it in a way. Like, in Skyrim, if you play with a two-handed sword or a crossbow or anything, it genuinely feels about the same, no matter how you approach the combat. You're just doing different kind of damage with the weapon. Like, there's not a huge difference in it. But in this one, like, because you can, for example, like one of my characters ran with a pistol and a spell book.
Yeah, same run as me. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a hugely different way of approaching combat, and a hugely different way of approaching, like, if you go into a big encounter with a big boss, for example, versus like my other character, which was like a hardcore fascist that ran with a double-handed bastard sword, and a huge set of armor. I really appreciate the fact that, like, and that you can also respec your character at any point. So you can really explore and do different things with it, and I never felt bored with the combat, even though there was a lot of combat in that game.
Yeah. Although I will say, like, one of the things people have complained about, and I definitely started feeling it in the second area, is this one suffers from not a huge enemy variety. That's a bit of a problem in a lot of modern games. It's so hard to make a big bestiary of enemies. But, the second area introduces like a couple of new, like, forest-themed enemies. So I'll assume the last couple of areas also bring like a couple of themed enemies. But you kind of have seen the enemy variety fairly quickly in this game. So that's a bit of a ding, I'd say.
I guess so, yeah. I didn't ever have an issue with the enemy variety in that sense, because I'm kind of used to with that once an RPG gets to a certain length or certain size, that you end up just killing a lot of spiders and lots of wolves, for example.
That's true, and once your build becomes really, like, elaborate, like, that kind of dominates the gameplay. Like, the enemy choices, unless they're like really, really specific enemies, they don't really affect the gameplay as much,
Yeah, pretty much. And I would agree that it would be nice for there to be more, but from what I understand, this was like a in the relative terms of how where game budgets are these days, that this was a relatively like medium budgeted kind of series.
Yeah, and that's one area where you can tell it, I think, which I think this game's smartly budgeted. I think the cheap parts are at the parts which I think should have been a little bit skimped on, so to speak.
Yeah, but I will definitely say here that I would rather any day of the week take smaller budget games with lesser production values if it means that we get them faster and that the people are paid reasonably for less amount of work than they are right now. Because I don't need my games to take, 8 to 10 years to make and cost $500 million and still have so that everybody slaves away for months on end just because they wanted to, make it so that you can see through the holes in their shirt or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly, I totally agree. That's what I mean by it being like smartly budgeted and they were cheap where they were necessary. Like, yeah, these enemy variety and some presentation choices are secondary to me to like the good level design and good writing, which is where the real effort went to.
Yeah, and it's a
real
beautiful
effort.
game.
The major effort went to, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful game too because the production design and like the way that like the world is built, like the whole opening island or the place where you are, like with the harbors and the ships, is really stunningly beautiful. And I had a lot of fun. The first 3-4 hours of my initial review, I was just going around and doing the touristy thing of just taking photos of different places.
Well, there's so many cool things to see, so that's also a benefit of smaller, slightly more compact, not a giant open world, but kind of a limited open zone. You can kind of stuff interesting points all over, like a canyon with a giant skeleton fossil thing just dominating the side of it that you can just kind of stumble upon on your travels is like, that's cool shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, if we're talking about presentation now, in general, a really bold artistic choice here because it's like stupidly colorful, Like you can tell it at the beginning with that splash screen with that skeleton made out of funguses who's just a rainbow of colors, and they really hit you with that in that first area you explore, Dawnshore. There's so many different colored mushrooms everywhere and just weird popping off shapes. It's super vivid. So I gotta give points on the art design on that front.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the idea that the end of the world is not like dark and gloomy, and it's not something is eating the world and it's like just your good old black goop or something like that. That it's actually a nature reclaiming everything, because it really well lends into the story itself, where you have this whole bigger conversation of like, well, is nature taking back the things that were rightfully its, that everything was like this before we came here, that that really such a bad thing. And I think that's a really, really great visual style to to push forward. And I think I would much rather again see more games like this where you have a bright and colorful visual style from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolute agree. It's interesting. Impressions I've read online are that the second area might be the worst one of the four. And I wonder if it's affected partly because that one is immediately a lot less vibrant as an area, that compared to the first one you go through. Because it's a gloomy, fog-shrouded, foresty place. So it's not just a splash of color. I made sure to play that far so that I could kind of judge it for myself. And I like foggy forests, so I thought it was fine. But I could kind of see that, now this was a kind of a more gloomy vibe. So I wonder if that aided people's expectations.
Well, I don't know. I think it's probably just because the first area is so ridiculously pretty.
Yeah.
That I think it's a little bit different, and I think the second one is a little bit more, I don't know, cartoony is the wrong word, because it's still got like zombie servants and stuff like that. But I can see why people wouldn't like it as much. I thought my least favorite one was the fourth area because it's a volcanic kind of lots of rocks and that stuff that would, doesn't really interest me in that much.
The fire and brimstone lava land thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I played Northern Journey, which was this amazing tour of various kind of Scandinavian environs, the final area was again this kind of like ash and brimstone lava area, and it just felt like a huge kind of downgrade compared to the like natural beauty you had been through there. So yeah, I can actually imagine that now that you say that. I'll have to see if I can get that far to see what I feel about the fourth area.
But I mean, they all have their good bits. Like I don't think I ever had a time where I was looking at it going like, oh, this is kind of ugly. Like it's just it's just a preference.
Yeah.
I mean that's the case with almost everything. Like you end up looking at stuff, and I think that all of us will find something that we prefer to look at in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I didn't hate that second forest land. Not really. It was nice. I don't know. Maybe the opening area where you're walking through the fields, that's a little generic, I guess. But I think it quickly warms up after that once you get to the first town and start picking up quests that take you exploring the woods proper. So yeah. If we talk further about presentation, we already talked a little bit about voice acting, and we're pretty delighted by this cast with some big names when you look through it. I want to call out one more great voice work here is the character, one of the kind of major antagonist characters is Inquisitor Ludwin, who is this super scary Knight Templar lady, like fully masked up. I think it's delightful that she is voiced by the voice actor who did... I think her name was Seri, was the like Jedi Master in Jedi Fallen Order. And I think it's just delightful that she gets to now voice a villain, and very specifically she's voicing like a Darth Vader archetype. And, they build her up a lot. So when she finally shows up in the plot, I really was like, oh, this is such a cool like villain character. I love this so much.
I really like the fact that you can, just based off of your dialogue, you can just start like putting in stuff like, oh yeah, we used to date and stuff like that, and everybody just kind of accepts that.
Yeah, then, that was a super organic way of like doing the like building up the backstory.
Yeah, because Ludwin is a character from Pillars of Eternity 2's expansion, Deadfire.
Yeah, they quote like her fate in that game all the time here in Avowed.
Yeah. Or I think Deadfire is the name of the thing. It's not an expansion. So But anyway, yeah. But Deadfire, and I remember the character vaguely from it, but This was one of those where it's just like it took me a long while to actually start remembering that, oh right, this is what they were doing in this. And I think that it's another one of the strengths of Avowed in that you can just completely jump into this and you don't really miss a thing because it's so well written and done that you understand the motivations of this character, even if you play this as the first game ever in the series. Yeah, no, she's super good. So I was happy as a guy coming into this world for the first time that, oh, this is the Knight Templar character I'm playing off of. Man, this is awesome. Yeah, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it where Inquisitor Ludwin goes, because like there's still a lot of really, really, really great villain bits that she has. Yeah, I can tell she's gonna be like still a really huge thing. I can't tell if she's gonna be like the main bad guy or kind of the Inspector Javert type, like play obfuscating the you trying to stop the main villain. But I'm down for either of those. Really, it should be interesting. Yeah, and there's again, I would say that like based on how you play and based on which missions, because there's a lot of hidden side quests too. Yeah. So, and like one of the really good things about it is that like it doesn't really like flat out tell you what you need to do or like what you should do next. So like you can miss a bunch of stuff. So I think that depending on how you play it, you're gonna find Ludwin becoming either like a really, really despicable character or then like at least a understandable villain. Yeah, I love that shit.
Right. But I do have to call out something presentation wise, like, and again, this is definitely a case that I'm glad they didn't. On the other hand, I'm glad they didn't waste like all their budget and put a ton of like crunch into making this perfect. But there's a really old-fashioned way of doing NPC conversations in this, which is this super stiff like character just standing there talking to you with like no particularly interesting animations or no like camera work. And I really felt it like here for the first time. I'm pretty sure it's been going on for a while, but here it just feels like, wow, these are like, this is a really like old-fashioned way of doing these conversations, is like this cut into like just kind of characters standing around and stiffly talking.
Okay.
Also, what's even funnier is if there's more than one NPC talking to you, where they do this thing where they're just kind of both standing side by side so they can kind of face your character. Like in particular, the first time Ludwin shows up at the embassy, like it's Ludwin and the ambassador standing side by side, facing you as the player, and it just feels like a really awkward conversation. Like that's not, I don't think like that's not a very natural way of anybody kind of standing around and talking to each other. So
yeah,
I
guess.
think back to like Witcher 3, which put a huge effort into like people kind of moving around and acting, while the like NPC conversations are going on. So like this feels like it's like a little bit old fashioned what this game does in conversations.
I guess now that you point it out, yeah, I can see that. I think it says about the thing that like I had completely forgotten that was a thing.
Yeah.
And I hadn't paid that much attention to it.
Yeah.
So I think for me it was not a huge problem. But yeah, now that you mentioned it, and now that I'm sitting here and just kind of slowly hear the gears grinding, I do think that that it did happen. It didn't bother me that much, but I worry now that if I go back to play it, that will I now notice it and go like, oh god,
oh no, I've ruined the game for you.
My immersion.
Well, sorry about that, but I don't hate it either. Like again, because the writing's so strong, I'm perfectly fine with it. But it just kind of was like, we're doing this now. When I was playing it, the cutscenes often in general, like I felt like, or lack thereof, like. I think a bigger budget or like more like presentation focused games would have more filler cutscenes in various scenes, where this game just kind of has like fades or transitions and just a little bit more limited. The number one thing I think of is the first time you touch one of the big Adra crystals and have a conversation with the mysterious voice in your head. I think a game more presentation focused would have had an elaborate cutscene where your like character walks up to the crystal, puts their hand on it, and there's like crazy flash and their eyes roll in the back of their head, and then you like maybe see them like being transported into like this astral plane. Whereas in this game, you hit the prompt to touch the crystal, the screen goes black, and it fades back in on you talking to this glowy ethereal thing that represents the voice in your head. Like, that was again like something where it was a little bit more like reserved in presentation in that moment.
Yeah, but I found that kind of charming and quaint because the whole thing leans so heavily onto like Morrowind and Oblivion kind of style of storytelling that I think that that lent to its charm in a way instead of like taking away from it.
Yeah, I can see that too. Like again, like these are really quibbles I'm throwing here at the end of just like weird little things I noticed, and I totally understand that they with what they were working with, like these are the places they didn't like work on as hard, and that's fine. But I think it's worth to at least point out like some of these design choices.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Don't have a whole lot else to add to it. It's a really good opening to the year in terms of like big RPGs. And like you said, again, talking about the scope of it, like I gotta appreciate that a game which nowadays, would be considered kind of medium size in scope and budget can still be this splashy and this interesting. I'm really, really delighted by the work put into Avowed.
Yeah, I am too. I gave it 5 stars in the review and just called it one of the just most endearing RPGs that I've had the pleasure of playing in a long time. And I think it's saying a lot because this year already, like, I've already reviewed Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and then Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, and now Avowed. So it's been a really good year already for RPGs of all kinds.
Yeah, it's been super varied what you just listed too. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're only in March, so it's been crazy. It's been like a great RPG every month.
Crazy. Like I haven't had time to get into all of that. Then I'm glad I put it into Avowed. This one's punching really hard this game, so appreciate that I put the time into it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those games that ends up on the best of the year game lists very easily.
Yeah, let's hope that happens for Obsidian's sake. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they've already said that because this game was a hit, and because their production costs were so limited, that they are going to be moving really fast into making Avowed 2.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to see how long that, like, or what fast means for them. Like, I don't think it's going to be fast in the way Ryoga Gotoku makes games, which is like almost every year.
Yeah, but basically doing a whole lot of strategic recycling of work that they put previously. I do not say that in a bad sense. I'm really impressed by their work ethic in that sense.
Yeah, I do think that we're talking maybe 3, possibly 4 years before we get to see another Obsidian thing. But I don't know. I would like to be wrong, and I'd like to believe that we get to see something really cool soon.
I'd appreciate it. Do you think they're going to go back to isometric RPGs, the Pillars of Eternity vibe ever?
Maybe. I don't know. I hope that they keep this for a while, because this seemed to work out so well for them, and like kind of rejuvenated their interest and love for the world. And I really enjoyed it. I think I would be very happy to play another one like this.
Yeah. I wonder, because I think Pillars, as I understand, having not played them but read from them, is very good. But I think it really was also taking advantage of the fact that they came out when, these isometric RPGs hadn't come back in the major way that they have now. So now we're in a post-Baldur's Gate 3 world. Yeah, maybe might be a safer bet to focus on the Avowed style now that this is a hit. I don't know. But hey, whatever blows in Obsidian's winds, they seem to be a pretty solid studio, and I look forward to their continued working. So I'm glad to hear that this game's also been a success. So hopefully it won't be another sad story about layoffs on this part then. Gosh darn, this year has been a bummer once again on that front.
Oh yeah. And it doesn't seem to be getting any better. No,
I don't know how. I don't know what would happen to really at this point, but whatever. I don't want to be a bummer on once again here, so we'll move on. Avowed. Big recommendation if you like RPGs. Even if you are maybe it's a bit more action-y. No, I think it's quite a delightful little, thing. So I think it appeals to multiple sides of the gaming world. So recommendation from both of us, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it for our first episode of 2025. I do believe we are aiming to be a little bit more productive this year, so please look forward to a new episode a little bit sooner than, 6 months later.
One hopes, yeah.
I shouldn't make any promises that I can't keep.
A few months later.
Oh boy. But we're gonna be signing off. Jonathan, do you want to plug anything that's going on right now?
Oh goodness, what is going on? Well, I'm on OpenCritic these days.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh wait. Oh, Open Critic, huh? Okay.
Yeah, my site got accepted, or I got accepted as a writer on OpenCritic. So I'm not going to be 100% sure on this, but I'm quite sure. I'd say like I'm 80% sure that there's only two other like singular journalists apart from me who are on OpenCritic. Because usually they only take magazines or people with like big teams around them. And I know that they have SkillUp, who is an Australian guy who does solo reviews, and then the Jimquisition, so Stephanie James Sterling.
Yeah.
And now me. So I think I'm in good company with.
Congratulations! I'm now looking up Avowed on OpenCritic just to see if I can find you here. Like you should be here, I guess.
I think I should be there. Yeah.
Ah man, I can't get a giant master list, so I can't look you up real quickly. I'll just have to have faith that you're somewhere in here.
You can actually look me up with my name.
No,
or
I
with
found you.
Deutsch
There you are.
Yeah.
Yep, you're listed here. Very lovely, beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great to see you here.
Yeah, so I'm there now these days, and that's opened up some opportunities. I can't really say yet any impressions because I'm still embargoed, but I can say that I just came back from Frankfurt, where I was checking out Doom: The Dark Ages.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I will have something about that coming up soon, but right now I can only say that yes, I have been there and I have seen it, and I am going to be writing about it.
Oh boy, I am looking forward to that. You know that I am a big, well, shall I say it, Doom guy.
Ho.
Yeah, so really looking forward to hear your impressions.
Yeah, and then I think it's going to be out by the time this episode is out, but I have a preview. I got to play the first couple of hours of Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is one of those big RPGs that I'm looking forward to. I got to see it, the gameplay, like just as a hands-off demo last year at Gamescom, and now I got the chance to, I spent a couple of hours with it, and it's really something special. I think it's going to be another one of those that if you're a fan of RPGs, especially Final Fantasy, and anything from Square, I really think that this is going to be a huge game for you this year.
Oh man, good stuff. I'm happy to hear because it looks very ambitious and very unique. So I'm really happy to hear that that's coming along well as well.
Yeah, and it's out really soon. It's April 24th, so exactly a month from now.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, and other than that, I am prepping my summer because there's a lot of game releases still, even though now everybody's kind of worried about when is GTA launching, so we have like a release schedule until like I think early August, and then there's nothing. It's completely empty because everybody's just waiting to see that if GTA 6 comes out like in September or October, nobody's going to publish anything until like January.
Right, okay, shit. We might have a very, very, very quiet end of the year then.
Yeah, so like right now I'm just kind of trying to see, what the heck is going to happen until then, and then like get my everything ready for Gamescom, because I am hearing a lot of talk that this is going to be the biggest Gamescom that we've had in about 10 years.
Gamescom.
They've now started booking like extra space for it, and I think part of that is going to be because we have a new Nintendo Switch coming out finally.
Oh yeah, that's probably that'll do it then. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big one, and I think that it's going to be quite wild. So I'm just trying to book everything for that in advance, so that like, because from what I can tell, I know that Cologne is going to be absolutely packed this year.
Okay, well, I really hope that works out. And mayhaps yours truly might also be spotted at Gamescom this year. We're still brainstorming that one, but...
Yeah, we're trying to figuring out and trying to get things going.
It might be happening.
But before that, we've got... I know you weren't a big fan of Elden Ring, but there is Elden Ring Night Rain coming out, which I got to play as well a couple hours.
Right.
And I really enjoyed. And we've got... Oh, goodness. We still got Death Stranding 2, if you want your Hideo Kojima fix. And we got Metal Gear Solid Delta coming out before August. I think we're going to be plenty busy with some interesting games.
Yeah, I'd say before the GTA bomb drops, I think we can squeeze out an episode or two, so no worries on that front, because there's some choice stuff coming out.
Yeah. What about you? I've been watching your Ghost of Tsushima videos, and they've been going along swimmingly.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I hope it's been enjoyable. Yeah, I can say at this point that I have managed to record the entirety of that series, so it'll be wrapping up in a month or so, and it's delightful. So, Ghost of Tsushima is a really impressive game. So we talked about it in our Best of 2020 episode, where you ranked it in your top 5, and I would say it's well earned its high echelon.
Yeah, and like it's been fun revisiting it, watching you play it. I haven't yet gotten into your Grand Blue Fantasy. Was it Relink?
Relink, yeah, is the action RPG spin-off.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into that one yet. I'm focusing just now on the Tsushima, but
yeah,
I do think I'll have to watch that at some point. Once I have some time.
Well, yeah, give it a drop. It's a fun thing. I recommend it. That one also wrapping up soon. So right now we are doing the kind of the final area of Grand Blue here. If people want to tune in for that, and I guess I can. I've been teasing it in various episodes, but I guess I can spoil what's coming up right after that. Of course, I'm going to be playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like, I promised that I would do that once it came on PC, and it came out really quickly on PC after I made that claim. So in April, everybody who liked me playing Remake, there's going to be more of that coming up. So please enjoy that, everybody.
Oh, I look forward to that, because Rebirth was one of my favorite games of the previous year. So
yeah, and a few episodes in, I can see why you said that. Yeah, I've played the flashback sequence and was thoroughly impressed.
It's so good. I'm just gonna go and like relive that whole thing watching you play it.
Yeah. So look forward to that, everybody. Plus, of course, on the giant RPG slot on Monday, Tuesday, we're doing Trails in the Sky, the second chapter. An acquired taste, but I love that series dearly, you know. Well, I say that, but this is the second in the series I'm playing. But I loved the previous part dearly. This one's also hitting really hard, even though the plot has been like really ramping up and getting like a more intense compared to the easy vibes of the first chapter. I hope people like that as well. So that's going on my channel, and that's what's coming up. And I've also been doing a little bit more streaming now. I've tested streaming on YouTube with a couple of art streams, and they were received all right. So in the near future, I will be doing a little bit of video game streams as well on YouTube. I hope someone out there gets something out of those too. I hope you guys can drop in when I'm live.
Nice.
Right now, I've been live usually on Monday in the afternoon/evening finish time, so GMT +2, like around 6-7 o'clock. So if I can't promise that I can keep that streak going, but if you want to catch me live on YouTube, maybe have a gander at that time, and maybe I will be doing something silly at that point. So yeah, hope to catch you there. But yeah, this has been, once again, this has been our delightful opening for 2025. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you folks tune in for our next episode as well. But from me and Jonathan, this is now goodbye.
Goodbye.